Welcome into a Locked On crossover episode. I'm Roman Tomashoff with Locked On Huskies. That's Mark Culkin with Locked On USC, and we are here to break down this market. I think it's still okay to call this a heavyweight matchup between the two teams. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen to the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And so, we can still call this a heavyweight matchup since USC is number 20 in the college football playoff initial rankings. Washington obviously sitting at number 5. So Mark, good to have you here. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. I was a little surprised too when I saw USC drop in at number 20. I was like, okay, a little bit of respect. 2 losses, but yeah.
The losses.
Go ahead. No,
it's
a heavyweight matchup in the fact that Washington is undefeated, 8-0, number 5 team in the country. I think USC held that spot at one point earlier in the season. Season hasn't gone quite the way anybody had anticipated. So this is USC's chance at, I guess, playing the role of spoiler. So a little bit of road to redemption, so to speak, where, hey, you know what? We don't have a chance for the national championship in the playoffs. Well, we have this much of a chance, but let's see how many other teams how many other teams we can ruin. So I think that's the approach USC is going to take right now.
You know what? That's fair. And so I feel like that's a great way to get into our first point today, because we're going to break down Washington's offense versus USC defense. And then we're going to flip the script and we're going to do USC's offense versus Washington's defense. And as we were just talking to the pre-show about, Washington's offense is one of the best in the country. They are leading the nation in passing yards per game. And one thing that, I noticed from USC's defense when I've been, right with everything I do with Inside the Huskies, and just as we've talked on the show this week, is we have noticed the theme of not only Washington, who can take advantage of everything through the air with Michael Penix Jr., but USC has given up a lot on the ground over the last couple of weeks too. And Dylan Johnson, who's a transfer back from Mississippi State, has done a really good job this year. He's only got 100-yard performance, but that did come in Washington's biggest game of the year against the Oregon Ducks. So, Mark, what do you think that this USC defense needs to do to slow down the Washington offense?
So it would be great if they can just tackle somebody consistently. Look, last USC, they play the run decent, but there's enough times during the game where the guy who's on contain doesn't do contain. Somebody is supposed to be in the A gap, they end up in the B gap. There's always somebody or something that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Last week against Cal, they shut down the running game, except for, they gave up 2 big runs to Jaden Ott. One was 61 yards. They gave up another big run to another running back. It's the big plays that they give up. That's the biggest issue with USC's defense, is they'll look good for 5 minutes, and then they don't look good for the next 20 minutes. They give up the big plays, and that's where Washington's offense can hurt USC, specifically in the passing game. I think USC will do enough up front defensively against the run. It's the passing game where I'm scared.
So everything you just said, if I'm Washington's offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, I would just be licking my chops right now, because Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk have been 2 of the best wide receivers in the country this year, and they haven't even had their full complement of wide receivers for the majority of the season. Jalen McMillan played in the first 2.5 games, we can call it. He got hurt right before halftime against Michigan State, and then we've barely seen him since. Played a little bit against Oregon, had to come off in the first quarter, and then tried coming back again against Stanford, had to come off early once again. So we're not sure about his status yet for this game, but that's just another guy where if he is able to go even in a limited capacity, he's a guy who can bring that big playability. We saw Washington go off for a 92-yard touchdown to Jalen Polk this past week against Stanford. And one of the biggest things that Washington's offense does really, really well is the offensive line has been pretty good this year. The guard spots have been a little bit questionable, but both tackles and Washington center have just been really, really stout. And I think that's something where if USC can't get pressure on Michael Penix, which is one of the big things that especially Arizona State was able to do really well, then he's going to have all the time in the world to sit back and make those big plays. And Mark, just to add a little bit of insult to injury, he is now over the flu that he has been dealing with in the last 2 weeks. So I mean, I don't know how much that helps you here.
What helps is if USC's scheme was a little bit different. Everything is based on having to execute perfectly, as I was talking about earlier. A guy being in the right gap, just doing his assignment. And the scheme is set up where USC's cornerbacks are left on an island. There's very rarely do you see any type of over-the-top help with the safeties. So if Michael Penix is given the time and USC can't get to him, yeah, it could spell trouble. Now, with that said, when USC is able to get to the quarterback, things work out a little bit differently. The difference between this year's USC defense, which isn't good, and last year's USC's defense, which wasn't good, was last year's defense at least created turnovers on a more consistent basis.
Right.
That's not happening this year. It's coming more intermittently. You had Kalen Bullock have the big play against Utah. Last week, they create a fumble, the offense gives the ball right back. So there's just a lot of inconsistencies with this team, and the fact that USC has the players and they give great effort, but then they go up against a player who you might not have ever heard of before, like Cal's quarterback. He ends up looking like he's a seasoned veteran. The week before, you think you have Utah at a disadvantage. You have them in LA. They're playing pretty much every third string player on offense. And all of a sudden you're making a pig farmer famous at quarterback. So it's, for me, I cope with a lot of sarcasm.
I'm a pretty sarcastic guy too. I'm 100% on your page there.
For me, I see the effort. It's there. I know they have enough talent to get the job done. But when you start adding up everything and you look at, well, what's the common denominator? It's the same coaching staff and it's the same scheme, but the players keep changing. So until there is a philosophical change, USC's defense is what they are. They have the ability to make big plays. They don't have the ability to put together a defense that can play together for 4 quarters.
So that's another thing, like one of the big things that you highlight right there that stands out to me outside of the whole 4-quarter thing, because Washington, we've seen them finish strong time and time again this year. Outside of the first month of the year where Michael Penix just didn't have to play in the 4th quarter, like just throughout the entire month. Washington loves seeing man coverage. I was talking to Roman Tomashoff earlier in the week, and I asked him just what stands out about Alex Grinch's scheme on film. What is one of the first things that you noticed? And he said, yeah, they really seem to trust their corners, and they seem to love to play man coverage. And Rome and Jalen Polk and whoever else is going to be in there, whether it's Jeremy Bernard, whether it's Giles Jackson, Jalen McMillan, whoever it is, that is exactly what they want to see, because wide receivers coach Jamarcus Shepard, who came into the start of last year with Kalen DeBoer's staff, has proven why he was just such a hot commodity in the coaching world when Kalen was able to hire him away from Purdue. And he's just done such a great job getting these receivers right and just helping them out with everything it is that they've been able to do, which Jimmy Lake and John Donovan just straight up didn't. So we don't need to go down that road, because that's just that's a whole other podcast we can do there. Sure. But that's something where that's exactly what they want to see. And Michael Penix also, that's exactly what he wants to see, because he trusts his receivers in every single situation. You see the game-winning drive against Oregon. What does he see? He sees man coverage. All right, I'm just going to attack my guy here. And the touchdown of Roman Tomashoff, just, yep, I'm going to throw it where only he can get it, and I trust that he's going to make a play. And that's exactly what he did. And then on the other side of this break, we are going to flip the script here, because I know Mark wants to be a little bit happier and talk about something that is, actually really fun to watch on film, and that being USC's offense. But first, we're going to give a shout out to our good friends over at Game Time, because if you want to buy tickets to this game, hey, you shouldn't be stressed out while you're doing that. One of the best places to do that is on the Game Time app, because Game Time is the fast, easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater, and just any other kind of event near you, with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the great things about the Game Time app, those last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, there are all kinds of deals on the Game Time app, and there's the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, everything And, another thing, they are just obsessed with finding you just any kind of way to save money on tickets. That's just what they do. That's their whole thing. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats, and you get an average of 18% savings with a zone deal. And the Game Time guarantee also means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right. Now it's time to flip the script here. So I'm just gonna hand it off to you because we just talked about Washington's biggest strength. Now let's talk about USC's.
I think everyone would agree USC's biggest strength in offense is probably a guy named Caleb Williams.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's kind of good. Usually. According to Caleb, he's had one bad game in his career. Unfortunately, that game happened at Notre Dame this year, but we're going to move beyond that. What Caleb is capable of doing is taking any play and turning it into a touchdown on any snap.
Yes.
What USC's offense is also capable of doing is being its own worst enemy. USC runs the ball really well. They just don't seem to want to do it enough, and that starts on the sideline with the play calling. Marshawn Lloyd, I believe, gets 8 yards a touch every time he runs the ball.
He's fantastic.
He's outstanding. Caleb Williams, he doesn't have Michael Penix's numbers. I think Michael's getting 10 yards a throw. Caleb is at around 9 yards a throw. So next they're about,
that's a huge difference.
Right. Tremendous difference. USC has the ability to score anytime they have the ball on offense. But again, it's what they don't do is use to their advantage is what I think is their tempo. They're constantly rotating players late. And as you know, by rule in college, when you substitute, you're giving the defense a chance to substitute. So you're kind of stalling your own offense. What I noticed last week against Cal is for USC is constantly looking to the sideline. It's not the only time I noticed it, but they're always looking to change the play based on what the defense is doing. USC has enough guys that you should be forcing the defense to react. Don't let them substitute. Get up to the line, call the play, snap the ball. What Caleb can do throwing the ball either from the pocket or outside the pocket stresses defenses. I'm not sure why this year he's not as good outside the pocket compared to last year, but that's been pretty much the discernible difference between Caleb's game this year and last year. Washington, I think you guys give up 135, 136 yards per game on the ground.
Yeah.
USC, I think averages about 155 per game. The best way for USC's offense to control this game, because I do think it doesn't necessarily have to be a shootout into the 50s. Run the ball. Washington has shown they don't stop the run as well as they would like to. And
so I have a question for you on that note.
Sure.
Because you just said that the offense can be its own worst enemy. Because you're right, that is one way to just kind of keep Washington's offense on the sideline, just control the clock, just because that's what Oregon tried to do. That's what a whole bunch Arizona tried to do that too. Will they?
That's been the question that's been ongoing lately is why is USC's offense look so inconsistent? Or is it because they're trying to get Caleb more Heisman numbers? Are they trying to spread the ball around? When you should just be going with the guy who's hot. As I was saying, Marshawn Lloyd, he was running the ball like crazy against Utah in the first quarter. Utah's defense was giving up on average per game 66 yards on the ground. USC as a team had 100 yards at the end of the first quarter. Lloyd had 80. And for some reason, in the second quarter, they ran the ball one time. So that's what I talk about. USC can be their own worst enemy. And it's a matter of why. What happened? Did they look at Caleb's stat sheet and said, oh, dude's only got 6 yards of offense. He's our Heisman contender. We got to do something different. If you run the ball and they can't stop it, you keep running the ball until they stop it. And that's why if USC wants to play smart on offense, keep the ball out of Washington's hands, use the clock, run it. You'll score touchdowns. Use the run to loosen up the pass instead of the pass to loosen up the run. And I think that's where USC kind of gets lost in their identity.
So that's something that Ryan Grubb has done a decent amount this year too. We talked about these teams being very, very similar. Because I will say the thing that from somebody who's just like in the press box every week and gets to watch this team is the thing that concerns me most is Caleb Williams outside the pocket and Caleb Williams making plays with his legs, because we've seen Washington's defense be very susceptible to that already this season. Bo Nix did a decent amount in the Oregon game, and Ashton Daniels did a lot last week at Stanford. He was really impressive outside the pocket and just kind of escape into things with his legs. He also made some unbelievable throws in that game, truly. And I think Caleb Williams is a little bit better. No disrespect to Ashton Daniels. But Caleb Williams is a little bit better.
And he is. And what's been so, I don't know, confusing is why he's been so hesitant to do it as much as he did last year. Whether he's trying to protect himself or he's being asked not to do it, he doesn't look like the same Caleb as last year. And I think that's what's part of the problem with USC's offense this year, is why it's been so inconsistent, is he's trying to be better than Caleb last year. And I think there's a little bit of a paralysis by analysis by him. He holds on to the ball too long sometimes instead of throwing it away. Take a 2-yard run instead of a 2-yard loss, hoping someone's getting open downfield. It's the little things.
So that's where I think Washington does have an opportunity to take advantage, because edge rusher Braylon Trice had one of the best games of his career last week against Stanford. He had 16 pressures in that game, just wild. The only guy to have more pressures in a game, Braylon Trice, against Washington State in 2022 when he had 18. So he's a really just phenomenal pass rusher, and I think that he does have a chance to kind of collapse the pocket. Zion Tupuola-Fatui on the other side has done a really good job just kind of jumping the snap, and he's done that a lot this season where he's been able to just kind of get off, but then he opens up a lane just kind of in that B gap for the quarterback to escape through, and especially when you're facing Caleb Williams, you can't really do that. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to watching and just kind of seeing how that plays out moving forward. But the one thing that I think that Washington can really do to affect the game is have linebacker Edaponi Ulofoshio spy Caleb Williams. That's something that Washington's defensive coordinators, Chuck Morrell and William Inge, have looked like they've been really hesitant to do over their time just kind of running this defense. But I'm really curious because Edaponi Ulofoshio is having a fantastic season. He's the top graded linebacker in the conference according to Pro Football Focus. And he's a really, really great tackler. He recorded 12 last week against Stanford. And he's athletic enough to kind of contain Caleb. And the question is, do they want to play him a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage and just kind of have him do that, or have him sit back in pass coverage, because the safety depth might be a little bit thin this week? And can Caleb just kind of beat Washington over their heads is my other question there.
He can. In fact, I've already made the prediction. I think Caleb was going to have more running touchdowns than throwing touchdowns. That's really what it comes down to. Is Caleb really just ready to take over the game? Whether it calls for it or not, he just needs to play more loose and more free. It just seems like now that the expectations have been removed, maybe he can play a little bit more loose and carefree. The one thing you have to be careful about when you're trying to have a guy play close to the line and spy on Caleb, he's got magic feet. He will make 10 guys miss just to get 5 yards. We've seen it happen. So he's capable of doing that. It'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan Washington's able to come up with, because if you just want to, contain him and keep him in the pocket, if you're not getting the pressure on him, eventually one of USC's wide receivers is going to come open. You've got a Taj Washington, you've got a Brendan Rice. You can run somebody out of the backfield. They've got a tight end in Lake McCree that they don't use often enough, but he's another weapon to use. Oh, and by the way, there's a freshman named Zachariah Branch.
I've heard of that kid.
He's literally USC has 2 human joysticks. You have Caleb Williams, and then you have this freshman. With the ball in his hand in open field, I've seen this movie before. He's a young Reggie Bush. So it's a matter of just, if USC can play 4 quarters, not 17 points in the first quarter and then go scoreless in the second quarter, 3 points in the third, and then another 21 in the fourth. That's been USC's problem this year. They haven't played a complete game yet. we're hoping that this is going to be the first game, as you said, big matchup, two heavyweights in LA. You brought up, you guys are having you're thin at safety. Guess what? So was USC. They're thin at safety. These teams are very evenly matched. There's a reason why USC fans, they look at their schedule and say, all right, you got Washington, Oregon, UCLA. This is the game they're looking at as the most winnable of the three. It's because neither team plays a lick of defense, and USC at home offensively should have the advantage over Washington on the road offensively. The other thing that I think might help USC is Washington gets penalized a lot.
Yeah.
So does USC.
That's been a big issue.
Yeah. So does USC. Now, so it's a matter of who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. And, if we want to say we're going to put it on the defensive shoulders, which defense can create more plays? I don't think either defense is really going to stop anybody. It's a matter of making a play when you need to make a play.
Right. So I feel like that's a great way to just kind of on the other side of this break, we're going to just make some predictions. Mark, on Locked On Huskies, we do a ton of bold predictions, so I hope you have some, because I've got some ready to fire your way. So I'm excited to see what we've got coming up next. But first, we're going to give a shout out to our good friends over at Prize Picks, because I love fantasy football. It's an addiction of mine. And Prize Picks, I have so much fun whenever I can get on Prize Picks, and just some of the best things about them. Prize Picks is the most fun you can have, winning up to 25 times your money this football season. And now you can play during basketball season too. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. And testing your skills on Prize Picks is the most easy way, not just the easiest, it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. And quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And do you want to get on the action? You can. All you got to do, go to prizepicks.com/lockdowncollege and use code lockdowncollege for first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockdowncollege and use code lockdowncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. All right. You ready to close this thing out with some fun, bold predictions?
Right on. Let's do this.
Well, I'll hand it off to you. What you got for me?
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Absolutely.
I predict that Caleb Williams will have 5 total touchdowns in the game.
Okay. So you said more rushing than passing.
Yeah.
So that would end up being. Do you want to go 2-3 or 1-4?
I'm going 3-2. 3 running, 2 passing.
I can get on board with that. We made a parlay on the show yesterday with thanks to our good friends over at FanDuel, and Lars had Caleb Williams at over 2.5 passing touchdowns. So I like that we can get both sides of that here. One that I've got, I said this one on Locked On Huskies yesterday, is I think that this is the game where Michael Penix gets back over 400 yards passing. We haven't seen him do that in a couple of weeks, but I think that he's going to go for over 400 yards, and I think that he's going to get 4+ passing touchdowns as well.
So you're really going out on a limb there, going up against Alex Grinch's defense, that Michael Penix is going to hit 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
I know it's a really bold prediction
there. Like I said, if you can have, and I mean this, and I don't mean this to be derogatory, but when your quarterback at Cal has recruiting offers from Lehigh, Yale, Penn, and Cal, and he looks like a Heisman Trophy winner by the end of the game, credit to Cal, credit to Francisco Mendoza, but let's also take into consideration the defense. So that's all I'm going to say.
So the reason I call it bold is because it has now been four games in a row where Michael Penix has not hit the 400-yard mark. So
it's been, I don't know how many games in a row where everybody's offense looks great against USC's defense. So you lose that argument right away.
What are the ones you have for us here today?
I'm going to go Marshawn Lloyd gets 150 yards on the ground and another 50 catching them. So 200 total yards for Marshawn Lloyd.
Okay. See, that one I can definitely see. My question is, Is he gonna is how many? What's the share like between him and Austin Jones?
It's usually Marshawn Lloyd. Well, ball security has been a little bit of an issue for in the last few weeks. So he usually gets at least 2-to-1 touches compared to Austin Jones. He's just more of Marshawn is an explosive back. Not only can he run between the tackles, but he can also get around the edge and take it to the house. So he's another dynamic player that USC has.
I do like watching him a lot. So one that I didn't really get a chance to bring up on our show yesterday that I wanted to go with is second string running back Will Nixon. I'm feeling an anytime touchdown for him this coming week. He brings just kind of a different level of speed to Washington's offense, where they've got some pretty fast players on the outside. Roman Tomashoff runs a 4.3 40-yard dash. Like that dude can absolutely fly. But Will Nixon just kind of adds a little bit of extra juice to the backfield, where Dylan Johnson, he brings it as well, but he's more of just like a power run between the tackles kind of guy for the majority of his reps, and a lot of just like stretch plays and all that. They've gone to Will Nixon. And I think that this might be the week where we see him just kind of stretch the defense out before some of these shots maybe. And they use him down in the red zone a decent amount as well. So I'm feeling just anytime touchdown, Will Nixon. I feel like that's something that might hit this week.
No, I talked about it earlier. Contain on the edge for USC's defense has been a challenge this year. And that's putting it mildly. So I can see that happening. USC fans have been, I don't know the best way to put it, conditioned to expect at least 1 to 2 big plays from the opponent against USC's defense per game.
That's fair. That's what Washington loves to do. So
there you go.
Here's another bold prediction for you. Over 2 big plays. I know.
No, that's a fair bet. That's a fair bet. Like I said, I see this being one of those games where I don't want to say last team with the ball is going to win. If USC controls the clock by using their running game and passes it, USC doesn't have to have Michael Penix numbers through the air. Anywhere from 250 to 300, that's a great game for Caleb Williams. You add another 200 on the ground, 250 on the ground, that's enough. So
right.
I don't foresee this going into the 50s for each team. I know we're going to do a final score prediction here soon, but I don't see either team getting into the 50s. I'll be honest with you. And I say that because everybody's predicting it to be a track meet. And usually when it goes that way, it goes the opposite way.
Fair enough. So you got any more for us here? Because I got one more that I think you'd like.
I've got at least, I'm going USC with 1.5 interceptions on Penix. Over 1.5.
Okay.
He does like to throw the interception. He will challenge.
He gets a little over aggressive at times is the biggest thing that I've noticed, where one of the biggest like games that really stands out on film is last year against UCLA. There are certain times where he just said, yeah, I know I can throw this ball, and I just don't look at the defender that's there. And, it's something that happens when you throw for 4,800 yards, you're bound to throw.
When you've got 3 NFL wide receivers, you're going to take your chances more often.
At least 3. You should see some of these underclassmen, man. Those dudes can play too. One that I've got for you is I went with USC's leading receiver in this game, and I think it's going to be Zachariah Branch. I just don't think that Washington has the speed to stick with him, because I noticed that USC likes to move him all over the field a little bit from some of the film that I've watched, and I don't, especially if they move him down into the slot, I don't think that there's anybody on this Husky team that can stick with him. And especially they've had some trouble tackling too. So I think that Zachariah Branch, whatever the number is, I think he's going to end the day as USC's leading receiver.
He hasn't been there yet this season. I understand your rationale. It makes a lot of sense. I probably see either Taj Washington or Brendan Rice being the leading receiver for USC. And look, USC fans would love to see Zachariah Branch touch the ball every snap, get the ball in his hands. Like I said it earlier, but he's still a freshman, and freshmen like to they think they see things that aren't there. So it's true. That's the growing pains with Zachariah, and you see it more so on kickoff and punt returns than you do at wide receiver. But still, those are the things you have to kind of deal with when you're really talented and you think you can score anytime you touch the ball.
Especially with that kind of speed too.
Oh, he's electric. He's a special talent.
He really is.
So I would love for you to be right. I really would. I would love to see it, because if that's
I'm
the
gonna take
case,
that to the bank.
yeah, if that's the case, USC is going to have a fun game on Saturday.
You got one more for us?
How about a final score prediction?
All right, let's do it. See, I personally, I'm always wrong. Like it's not even like I'm always wrong. I am so horribly wrong that the last time we did a crossover, I gave a winner by a certain margin, and that hit on the money. So I think I'm going to stick with that. So I'm going to say Washington by 4, because I know the line on FanDuel is -3 for the Huskies. I'm going to say they cover. So I'm going to go with -4.
See, it's interesting. I believe it started at 4.5, and so it's come down, which is an interesting. It's interesting, very interesting to me, because if you've watched USC these last few games, there's not a lot of confidence right now. Everybody likes to look at things either the half glass full or the glass half empty. People are just seeing a glass, and it's like, oh, we're not sure what it is. It's there. I'm going USC 45-38, and this is why. As I mentioned, USC came into the season as everyone expected them to be a playoff contender. They've already gotten their 2 losses. They've got 3 really big games ahead of them, and they know that right now this is their playoffs. They cannot lose another game if they want to play in the conference championship game. So they're going to go in there. They're going to play free. They're going to play loose. And all right, our playoffs start now, and we just need to get 1 stop more than Washington's defense. We've got Caleb Williams. We're playing it at home. Washington isn't playing at home. And usually teams on the road, they feel that pressure a little bit more, especially if the game is tight. And I think that's where the difference will be.
I like that a lot. Mark, you want to plug your stuff before we get out of here?
Yeah. So when you're done making Locked On Huskies your first listen, come on over and you can know Locked On USC every day, Monday through Friday. When I'm not doing that, I've got the post-game reaction show after every game. And then I also do my writing over there at weusc.com. Every week, I also do the Inside the Trojan Huddle, the 2-hour show we do over there. So I'm all over the place. I've enjoyed this, Roman. We got to do this again. Maybe after the game.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see a conference championship game.
Oh, that would be a lot of fun. Hey, maybe we should do all our live shows together. That'd be a ton of fun. Maybe we can find a way to work that out. Mark, thank you so much. I've been Roman Tomashoff with Inside the Huskies. You can check out all my written work, and Lars Hansen, my co-host, who is unable to join us today, sadly, at si.com/college/Washington. And of course, make sure you tune in to Locked On Huskies and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you after the game.